Today's topic is not only how to survive, but how to thrive in the midst of the current pandemic. Most videos are always emphasizing just how to survive it. But if you think about it, this could not happen without our Lord allowing it. His permissive will at least had to allow it. Everything God does and or allows is for the good of our society as a whole and for the ultimate good of each individual in the midst of it. God desires us to grow in the midst of this. He desires us to recognize our blessings, not just the blessings of the past that we now wish we had happening in our lives, but the very blessings that we have even in this moment. As one young man said to me in spiritual direction just yesterday, he said, "I've gotten to spend more time with my family than I probably ever will again in my life." That time, he could have neglected, he could have become frustrated, he could have or one can choose to say, wow, what are the ways in which we can get to know each other better, love each other more, grow more as a family. And so looking for ways in which we can grow as Christians, as followers of Jesus Christ, and in ways in which we can become even better and more virtuous in this time is a great way to spend this time. I find those who concentrate on what can be rather than what can't be are the most satisfied, fulfilled, and people who really feel the most blessed during this time. Many of them say even, wow, I feel almost bad. This has been such a blessed time because I know it hasn't been for so many. But I really think it's our attitude and our mindset that determines a lot of it. Do I turn towards the circumstance or the God of the circumstances? Do I recognize the opportunities that are there for me to read more, pray more, reach out to relatives and friends that maybe I don't speak to in depth very often because I'm so very busy? Or do I become instead worried and upset about what might come, might be, or even the current circumstances that I'm in? And so a lot has to do with a real planning and looking at what is and looking at ways in which I can take what is and with God's help, spin it into something even better. I encourage you to look up some good spiritual reading. I encourage you to stay not so close to the TV, but instead close to the Lord, close to the devotions. Become more virtuous. Grow in those virtues that maybe I'm lacking the most, the patience, especially if you're at home with family. I almost said trapped, I should have said that, but especially if you're finding yourself much more with family, there can be a lot of temptations to the vices rather than the virtues. There can be relationships that have, of course all of us have these in our families, that have never grown to be what they could have been. And this can be a time to really reach out a little bit more, really seek to come together more. And I've seen a number of people do this, where they said siblings that they weren't close to anymore, they've become closer to. People that in their lives they didn't speak to as much, or neighbors they didn't reach out to as much, they now know much better. In other words, going outside of our little box that we often live in because of the world we live in that's so busy. Living, even though we live next door to many people, how many of them do we really know? How often do we reach out to help them? These can be a time of doing that. Yes, keeping social distances, but also still seeing that neighbor down the road who lives by herself. How's she doing? That person over there, maybe bake them a cake. There's all sorts of ways in which we can really let this be a time to grow. Hobbies that maybe we've neglected from the past are things we're interested in that we can now look more deeply into. So again, this can be a very blessed time. It does not have to be a time where we meditate on what was or what will not be, but instead concentrate on what is and what can be and what we can do with the time and all the abilities and blessings that God has already placed in our lives, in our homes, in our families, in our souls. If that happens, then we might one day look back at this time as, again, one of the most blessed times of our lives. And not only of our lives, but of our families and of our community. But especially that we might even more seek to become the saints God has called us to be. And from that, much fruit will come that will not only satisfy you and sustain you now, but also help you to thrive in the future. God bless you.